Hi, welcome to Awakening Talk. I'm Earl.
I'm Danielle.
So today we'd like to talk about how you discern the truth, right?
Mhm.
So part of that is also to realize that you've been lied to your whole life, right? Or at least manipulated, or at least tricked, or at least misled. And um, I'm very, was very easily persuaded in my younger years, and it's taken a lot to find my own truth and understand what it feels like when you hear the truth and when someone's trying to manipulate you and how that feels. And a lot of that is sorry, there's a strange noise that all of a sudden just happened.
It's a shower.
Yeah, the shower just went off. Hang on.
So, basically, I don't know why, but yeah, there's somebody's in here telling us that yes, that's what we should be talking about, or no, you should have a watered down version of it. I don't know. Anyway, so basically, we're talking about discernment and when to know. Um, I still hear it.
That's the candle.
Oh, okay.
We're very
We're on
distracted
fire.
today.
Okay, so basically, we're just learning about discernment, when to know the truth, what to trust, what not to trust, and so basically, from the time that we're born, we have people telling us truths, right? So, your parents tell you what's right from wrong. You learn from them. You learn from your church. You learn from your teachers. You learn from your grandparents. You learn from your friends, and then one day, 40 years later, you come to find out that they learned from their family, their friends, their church, their people, but they might not have been using any discernment. So, a lot of things that I've noticed in the past few years is that people haven't developed their intuition. That's that inner knowing of, you know, what's going on, listening to yourself, listening to God. Okay. So that's a huge problem, especially because, we all sin. I've lied multiple times. Um, I've lied to him. He's lied to me. I've lied to my parents. They've lied to me. Um, but we also need to know when somebody's lying and when somebody's telling the truth. I thought you were using the remote control on me. So you want to go from there?
Sure. So the biggest thing, the part of the awakening process, is realizing that the people in control of the entertainment and the news that you consume are the ones feeding you a certain story. And you need to use discernment to know what is real, what is true, and what is not real and what's not true. So, delving into this subject, there's something called MK Ultra, which they started doing. Actually, they've been doing it for centuries, but they really started ramping it up in World War II in Germany, and the Nazis were experimenting on people how to implant thoughts into people's subconscious so that they will automatically do what the regime wants them to do. Okay, and this can work on an individual basis. I'm sure you guys have seen what's that one movie where they turn people into assassins? Um, I'll think of it later. It doesn't matter.
No,
but they use this like hypnosis type of techniques to open up your subconscious and plant ideas in there.
Salt.
No, it wasn't salt, but
Yeah,
Manchurian Candidate. Okay, and it was an MK Ultra program. This is in the movie. It's MK Ultra program where they manipulated people's minds into in their conscious mind they didn't know what they were doing, but as soon as they heard a trigger, some kind of sequence of words, they would snap into this like assassin mode and go kill people, and then they wouldn't have any idea.
Basic hypnosis.
Yeah, it's basic hypnosis, but they've learned how to do it on a mass scale. And the real simple version of this is you create some kind of emotional response, some kind of trauma, and usually it's done with pictures, and so it's very easy to do with television screens. So they create some kind of event or cover some kind of event and show you pictures and have you have this overwhelming emotional outburst of trauma, right? So you witness all this death and all this terrible stuff. And then once your emotions open up to a certain frequency, they can start planting little ideas over and over again. And you will actually pick these up in your subconscious. And once I learned about this, I'd watch the news, and then I'd pick up the phrases that they were repeating over and over and over again. And then I'd go to work the next day, and I'd hear conversations of people parroting exactly what they just said the day before in the news. And my eyes were just wide open saying, oh my God, this is actually real, you know? And this has been done to us our entire lives ever since the television came out.
Well, you know, there's a big thing too about that. Like, there's a video that we would love for you to watch, and we can't really say it on here because they take a lot of channels down if you mention it. So I'm going to put it in the subject thingy.
Description.
Mm-hmm, yeah, that too. And you should check it out. But it'll help you understand what we're talking about. But anyhow, one of the things that I've noticed was during the whole COVID thing. So I just said that word.
You're not
so
allowed to say that.
Whoops. Well, anyway, the C word. So basically, people would have people on the news or whatever, and then they would mention something, and I started really noticing, like, several times it was like they started saying science. So, like, it's in the science. You have to follow the science. The science says this. The science. So here's the thing. Nancy P. was on the news one day, and, you know, she's on there every day. She does her stupid little news broadcast, and she said science. I mean, it was like 10 times in 3 sentences. And I was like, oh my God, listen to this woman. And none of it made sense. I mean, none of the sentences made sense, but she kept saying that she was following the science. And basically, everybody's dumb except for the people that follow the science. And they're telling the truth because they follow the science. We need to follow the science. And so then you start hearing people say, follow the science. And then I thought was really interesting is when all this stupid crap started happening, is that people were constantly saying social distancing. It was insane. I never even heard of that word in my life. Then we started seeing these stupid little circle things in the floor of grocery stores, and they said it. Then people were like, oh, social distancing. And then this is what really cracks me up. So, like, you have these, we have this sign here I don't know where it goes. There it is. Heavily meditated. There it is. And anyway, they had signs like that people made on the Cricket, and then what they did was they put, like, social distancing champion and all this stupid crap, and they were selling it on Facebook Marketplace.
So, but with that, when she said follow the science, it was first they told you how many people died, right? To shock you, to give that emotional response, to open up the subconscious to programming.
Yeah, oh my God, if I don't follow the science, I'm dead, you know?
So,
or if I don't wear a mask for him, I'm a bad person. Even though, what the hell does that even make? That doesn't even make sense. It's like...
But it's a way to break down your own critical thinking. It's a way to have people just follow orders because they've planted that in your subconscious, and they are very good at it. They've been doing it for a long time.
Well, they definitely know
exactly how to do it. And to think that you're above that or can get away from that, or they're not doing that to me, they are doing it to you.
And they've been doing it for years. Yeah. So there was this other thing, and I remember this just because I don't watch TV. So I haven't watched TV in a long time, other than I watch, like, recorded programs or, like, maybe Netflix or something.
We don't watch live
We don't watch live TV. We haven't watched it in a long time. The only time we ever get news is on Telegram, because that's actual real people that post videos of their own country and their own stuff. And I can see that they're actually showing me the video, and I see the video, and it's some homemade stupid cell phone video that looks ridiculous. It's not some production from CNN or, hold on one moment. Okay, so I have no idea what I just said.
I don't know either.
Okay, so I know what I was going to say, so I don't know if I even started or not. But anyway. Oh, we haven't watched regular programs of anything, okay? So we haven't watched any kind of TV shows or like anything like that, because we get our news from Telegram. And before Telegram, we never even watched the news because we didn't need to. Everybody else would watch the news, and we all knew it was bullshit. So we're like, oh, well, once they, it's like the people would listen to this news like it was, everything was true. And we just started seeing it.
Years ago, like 20 years ago, I would listen to NPR on the radio on the way to work, and sometimes on the way home. So I would think like, oh, I should be an informed citizen, And what I realized, of course, they're just giving you one side, but they were using that same technique, and it's very manipulative. So we've also seen that technique though in the major religions, and how they do the ceremonies and repeat things like that. So
yeah, so there's a lot of different. Well, I mean, I was getting to the point. So basically, my point is back in the I think it was the 90s, or there was a major school shooting. Okay, obviously, and it's obviously a horrible thing. But what they were doing, which was absolutely just blew my mind, and I remember thinking, "Wow, this doesn't even make sense." At the time, and I was a young kid, right? So it was. I think it was there was a school shooting, and then all of a sudden, they always get on their high horse about banning guns. Well, because, obviously it's a terrible thing. So there's a school shooting. Now they can take advantage of the school shooting. Instead of saying, oh my God, this is a horrible thing, let's mourn these kids. Let's pray for these children. Let's, get counseling for the children at school. Get counseling for them all the time, not just for in case they shoot up a school or after. They were worried about the guns, taking away the guns. Now, I know a lot of people don't agree with guns, but the only reason why we are not completely ruled by the morons that are in charge right now are because we do have guns. Because there's a lot of people out there that are still free, right? Or free, So, anyway, at the time, they had the school shooting, and they were talking about banning a certain weapon. Now, the funny thing about that is the weapon that they were trying to ban wasn't the weapon the kid even used. Not even close. And then, if you remember, there was a few years back, and this is maybe 10 years ago or something.
Okay.
There was a stabbing at school, right? And then they were talking about banning guns again. And it was they started doing the same thing, and everybody was like, "Well, they're going to start banning knives." No, they're still banning guns. Got to ban the guns. Don't ban the knives.
But it's the same. It's the use of a tragedy, and then the repeating and
right, because they want to pass some kind of their agenda. Now, don't get me wrong. I think everybody needs a gun? No, I don't really. But at the same time, this is the government taking away the rights of the people. And there's all the time the rights of the people. And the government is taking away everything, charging for everything, things that were given to us by God, and they're charging like they own the place. Well, they don't own the place, folks. We own this place. We do. God owns it. And it's a bunch of crap, and I'm done with it.
It is a bunch of crap. I like that phrase that says licensing is taking away a right and then charging you to get it back.
Yeah,
right?
It's horseshit.
So they give you the certificate as long as you pay them the money to do it. But you're allowed to do it anyway.
Right.
Who are they to say you're not? So
you get a car.
Pretty ridiculous.
You get a car and you have to get a driver's license, right? Okay, I can get on board with a driver's license because you don't just want a 5-year-old kid to get into a car and drive in a car, right? However, once you get that driver's license, you should not have to pay to renew the damn thing. You already got it. You shouldn't have to pay for license plates. It's horseshit. Okay? Well, you know, if you play, let's just say, play their little game here. Let's pay for license plates one time for the car that you use. And then whenever you get a new car, you take those license plate off, register to that car. You don't have to pay for it because you already paid for this stupid thing. You shouldn't have to pay more than once. It's dumb.
It is.
It's so dumb. And then once you start to get on that road of thinking like, wait a minute here, I've been taken advantage of for all these years, and I'm poor. And then this jackass, Nancy Pelosi, is in the Speaker of the House and has a $35,000 refrigerator and all this ice cream during the pandemic, and she's sitting there eating her ice cream and bragging about her freaking ice cream. Meanwhile, I'm over here eating hot dogs and ramen noodles and can't pay my taxes, okay? And we work our tails off, and all she does is sit there. She's an idiot, has a press conference, talks about people, gets nothing done, nothing ever happens, nothing ever gets done. They accuse people of doing all these things. They never find proof.
It's all just a show.
It's just a show. It's a big act. And so then you're sitting here and you're thinking, well, this lady's very angry. Yes, I am angry because I'm tired of being a slave. And that's what brings us to now. Now we're talking about lies and discernment.
Lies and discernment and finding the truth.
You look at these people, you know, you see them and you say, they're saying all these things, all the good things, right? Oh, we're going to lower your taxes. Oh, we're going to give you a stimulus check. Oh, whoop-de-freaking do. You're going to give me the money that you owe me anyway? Oh, wow, thanks. You know, maybe I should, you know, I'm going to give you the stimulus check. I'm going to give you the child tax credit early. You know what? That's my money anyway. I was going to get it anyhow. Quit acting like you did me a big friggin' favor. You didn't. Because I could have got it in April, or I could have gotten in little payments. It's still stupid. That's the thing. It's so dumb. And some of these people actually think they got a gift from these people. They're like, oh, thank you, Joe Biden. I'm so happy. It's like.
So if you notice, whenever we get a stimulus, our taxes go up.
Yeah.
Or there's inflation or something stupid.
Well, you give a McDonald's worker $15 an hour. They raise the price of a hamburger. Oh, no. They didn't raise it. Yes, they did. They raised everything. You know?
Right.
Sorry, I'm really angry about that.
All right.
Woo! There's a lot of energy in there.
Anyway, so when you're reading things, when you're watching things, there's you have to really tap into your inner feelings and how that hits you, whether something is right or wrong. You have to look at why they're telling you something. You know, everyone that tells you something seems to have an agenda or is trying to push people a certain way.
I kind of feel like it's just a part like where there's two sides to every story. So if you just realize there's always two sides or three, yours, theirs, and God's, right?
It gets complicated.
Then you ought to be able to figure out the in between. So if you say, okay, your side, their side, God's side, get in the middle there, figure out what's actually really happening, tune in, because more than likely you're not always right, which sucks, right? But you're not always wrong either. So, like, for instance, this crap with Will Smith. This dumb thing ever. I mean, it's so stupid. Actually, it's actually really funny. Earl has a very great thing to tell you about that. The Pfizer thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, whatever disease, Jada Pinkett.
Alopecia. I don't know how you say it. It's when you're.
Anyway,
your hair
you know, once again, they're using Hollywood because that award show, what is it?
The Oscars.
The Oscars, one of the highest watched shows. So they always use it for something, right?
Oh,
so this time, okay, there was this big drama. Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. But in the background, Jada Pinkett supposedly has this alopecia or whatever.
Yeah, that's it.
Which makes you lose hair. So Chris Rock makes a joke about
alopecia.
Okay. About G.I. Jane, right?
Which, you know.
And so there's this big dramatic incident, right? And again, we're into the MK Ultra, where you have a tragic event, a shocking event, causes trauma, opens your subconscious. Now you're always going to remember that Oscars because that's the one that Will Smith smacked Chris Rock. Right?
And then not only that, you're going to be like, oh, that guy, he's such a hero because he stuck up for his wife. And meanwhile, he abused this guy for telling a joke, and he didn't say alopecia. He literally said G.I. Jane because she shaves her head. This woman has shaved her head for years, and all of a sudden she's got some disease. Now all of a sudden they're bringing light to that. No, okay, whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
it is what it is.
Whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. They use the event, whether it's true or not. They use the event to cause the shock and awe, right? To open the subconscious, to then make you aware of this Oscars and bring awareness to that alopecia or whatever.
Right.
Then it turns out here in the background, here we come back with Pfizer. Pfizer's got this new thing to help alopecia patients, right? This
a new drug that just came out.
New drug. And who do you think sponsors the Oscars?
Pfizer.
So there's always some bigger thing going on. And, people are going to be talking about this slap heard around the world for months on end.
It's so stupid, too. And who cares?
And here we are talking about it, but only to make you take a step back. Look at the bigger things going on around us.
The first thing we said was, wonder what they're trying to do here.
Yeah.
And my first thoughts were this, because I had heard months back, about a year ago, that, there's a guy named Orlando Brown, and you can look him up yourself. And he accuses Will Smith of raping him. Okay? And so this has been, I think, 2018 or 19, whenever that happened. I think it might have been 2019. Anyway, it was before the virus stuff happened. And then all of a sudden, Will Smith basically drops off the planet, right? Like, you don't hear anything about Will Smith, nothing. And now all of a sudden, you're hearing about Will Smith again because he's doing the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the new thing. And then his wife cheated on him and basically made him a cuckold or something like that. That's what I heard. And, a new book came out, and she wrote about it, and she cheated on him over and over again, and he knew about it.
Mm.
And so he's at the Oscars. Everybody's been talking about her and him and everything else. He laughs at the joke, and then all of a sudden she's rolling her eyes and having a little hissy fit, and then he goes up and pops one. If you watch the video, he doesn't actually make contact with his freaking face. Chris Rock actually puts his face back like this before he even goes in to smack him, like he's bracing for impact.
Okay, I haven't seen this one.
It's the most ridiculous thing. Yeah, if you just watch it, you'll see that he doesn't even do anything. It's just a big act. These people are actors. They're ridiculous.
They are owned by the puppet masters,
right?
And they do what they're told,
like our resident chief.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're
in the same
owned.
way, all the people, all our elected leaders, they're almost all owned.
Also. Oh yeah, almost all of them.
The puppet masters tell them to do stuff, and they do it.
So another example of that would be Lindsey Graham. Today, Lindsey Graham says, did you see that thing I sent you?
I didn't see that.
So he says he's going to be okay with vetoing the new judge that Biden chose. Well, funny thing, he just met with Trump at a restaurant the other day. And this guy has been all over the place. And now, all of a sudden. So he's making some kind of deal. And if you don't know about that, you should look that up too. But we're not.
So
it's just about discernment, about knowing and thinking and, not just believing everything.
You have to get your head out of the emotional soup. Okay?
Yeah.
If they're showing you something to create an emotional response, these things are tragic. When people die, it is tragic. Your heart goes out to them, but you have to be able to pull your head out of the emotional soup and use your own discernment. And a lot of it is when there's a river of information pushing you one way, that's when you have to stick your head up and look the other way to see who's got the faucet on. See what their agenda is. See who's behind it. See what money is supporting it. See what NGOs are supporting it.
Follow the money.
And it turns out it always goes back to these elites with the money. And so all of these things are just to get the populace to do what they want you to do. And right now, they want you to hide away, suffer and die, and just do what you're told, even though it goes against common sense, even though it goes against any reason. They just want you to do it. And there's people that are so head in the sand about it that they will repeat those words over and over again, and they'll freak out like, just do it, just do it, even though you have reasons why you shouldn't be doing those things. It doesn't matter if we're talking about, the face diapers or the jabby thing
or the election. The election,
it doesn't matter what it is.
It was insane with the election with all the liberal people. And
we're not allowed to say that either.
And if you're one of those and you listen to this and you think, oh, they're nuts, but that's the problem. Like, so obviously we're not liberal, but here's the thing, guys. I had a conversation with a guy about 3 weeks ago at the Y, okay? And I was having a very nice conversation with this older man, and I was talking to him, and it was positive, and I could tell that he was on the other side of the political spectrum than I was. And I knew right away because I was being very polite, and he was going absolutely nuts. Like, absolutely nuts. And, like, he was just like, it was insane. He was, like, accusing me of, like, all kinds of stuff. It was absolutely nuts. And he just tried to make me look stupid. It was a complete narcissistic move.
Usually when people go nuts like that, they start with the personal attacks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he did.
If they can't get you on their side, they'll start calling you ugly or just something just totally random.
Well, he started cutting me off. He was rolling his eyes. Yeah. I was just having a conversation with him, and then finally I looked at him and I said, "Listen, buddy," I said, I don't hate you. He goes, "Well, usually people have to know me more than like 10 minutes to hate me." And he was just crazy, and I was like, "Well, I don't." I was like, I was just having a conversation because I personally would rather have, and I was just talking to him about this, rather have a conversation with somebody that has an opposing view, because we could both add our views and understand them, and I can
that's the whole point.
Like a little bit of each. That way we can have this nice conversation, and maybe not even maybe not to convince somebody that I'm the right one or that they're the right one, but to actually have an understanding where somebody else comes from. I don't need you to agree with me, but I need you to listen. Just like they don't need me to agree with them, they need me to listen.
Yeah.
Just to have that whole kind of, what's wrong with having a conversation between two people? I'll tell you what it is. It's like, since this whole craziness went, you can't have a conversation with two people. You can't.
So I remember in high school, my older sister was on the debate team, and I didn't know much about it, but she explained one time about argumentative standpoints. And you basically draw out of a hat your topic, and you have to take one side of an opinion or the other. It doesn't matter what you think personally about it. You take that standpoint in order just to have that conversation from two opposing views. And here's the fact, people. Nobody, not one person, has all the answers. No. And so we need each other, and we need to have these conversations on both sides of the fence, on both sides of the topic, whatever the topic is. And, when you silence any bit of that, you lose that piece of the puzzle that works for the greater good to find the solutions and raise humanity up.
A perfect example of that is religion. There are so many religions out there, and none of them have it all right. No. Not one. You might have little bits and pieces from each one that have this beautiful thing about them, but they don't, because it's so clouded, and people have their own opinions, and their opinions are so stuck. Their egos are so wrapped around these opinions that they can't even let it breathe. It's like if you looked around this place, you can't see anything here right now, but you would see we have crystals, and people would be like, "Oh my gosh." Certain people would be like, "Oh my gosh, you have crystals. That's evil." Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, it's a rock. Second of all, it came from God gave it to us, right? So how's it evil, right? So you keep going through these things. But if I were to say that to them, which I've had conversations about this, then they're like, Some people are completely standoffish, completely argumentative, completely insane, completely stuck, their head stuck in a Bible and in their book, and they can't see anything of it. They don't see the symbolism. Here's the funny thing I love about the Bible. It's like my favorite thing ever. Is that people are so stuck on what it says that they don't understand the Bible is full of symbols. I mean, it is nothing but symbolism. I mean, it is ridiculous. And so somebody says, "Oh, this is what it says." Yeah, that could mean that, or it could mean something completely different.
The camera out.
Sorry. I'm really excited. But I mean, I had people like argue with me, "Oh, that didn't happen. That didn't happen." I'm like, "Yeah, it did." And then, you look in the Bible and people were saying stuff about Revelation and you read Revelation and it sounds batshit crazy. Yeah, I'm sure a guy had a whole bunch of vials and put them in an ocean, I mean, come on. Nobody sees that there's symbolism there. It's like, okay.
So one of my favorites, quick example from Rabbi Lapin, because he breaks down the Old Testament with the Hebrew, and the Hebrew has so much more meaning behind every letter than the English translations do. But he was talking about Exodus and escaping Egypt. Well, Egypt, in the Hebrew translation, isn't necessarily a physical place. So it's something that is enslaving you, but it's you yourself enslaving yourself. And so it's how to escape the prison that you put around yourself. That whole story is about escaping your own Egypt that you place on yourself and becoming a free person,
It's pretty much the ascension. It's pretty much
it
everything that we're going through right now. It's
really great, but it's such a great symbolism, and that program was so great to listen to because you have from different perspectives someone that goes completely academic with the words of the Bible and will tell you 100% that's what it says and that's what it is. But then you dig into the deeper meanings of the translations in the Hebrew, and it opens up this whole other world that's pretty amazing. And, the same thing with the New Testament. You bring it back to the Aramaic. And this is one thing you really should do is look up the Lord's Prayer in the original Aramaic. Good. And instead of like 7 lines or whatever it is, there's a whole book on just that prayer broken down from the Aramaic and how much meaning that really is, And, we started talking about how to discern the truth, right? Well, part of that is breaking down the ego, taking your head out of the emotional soup, and being able to tap into the feelings of what is right and what is wrong. And that is a discernment that you find in yourself, and you find that through the connection with Source, because the light and the goodness and the greater good of it is the truth side, and then the darkness is the satanic Lucifer side, right? And so learning what that feels like is quite a process that I started going through and learning discernment on myself and hearing the ideas that seem to plop in my head and realizing that I don't really know if I came up with that or if it was given to me. And the stuff that's given to me, we call downloads. It just kind of plops in there. And usually when there's a big truth bomb that hits me, when I hear something, I get tingles all over my body, but it's good, like an excited, higher vibration, good angel tingle, and it shoots right through me like lightning. And it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't think of it that way. That's probably right. And then you dig into it and, then test it either way. But when something hits you and it feels gross, it feels icky, it feels bad, or it feels like, ooh, I don't know about that. It's basically the gut feeling. It's usually, if you go with your gut, you're all right. But we've all been programmed so badly by this MK Ultra stuff and the world as it is. Sometimes we have to kind of break out of the soup before we start trusting ourselves.
I kind of feel like with myself, it's what it's been for me. It was is if it's like instant gratification, it's not.
Yeah,
It's
that
not God.
sucks.
And it's like if it's like, oh, this sounds too good to be true, it usually is.
Yeah.
And then and it's not like I'm not like a Debbie Downer or whatever, because I mean I would love for things to be that easy, right? But just because it's easy doesn't mean it's like gratifying, you know? And that's the thing. Like, it took me a long time kind of to discern like what was good and what was bad. And then, you know, I had a lot of lessons along the way. I had people that really took advantage of that too, and they knew it. You know, they knew that like I was like wrestling with it. And I was too. I was really having a hard time. And because I would feel this, I had this feeling a couple of years ago. I had this really, really strong feeling and that something wasn't right. And I knew it deep down. I knew it wasn't right. And I knew it wasn't right. And the person kept saying all these nice things and all the right things. And then they would do this trickery. Like, they would, like, they would say things to him and they would be so nice. And then they would say things to me. They were so freaking nasty, but they wouldn't do it in front of him. They would only do it with me when I was upset. So like if I'm so I had a friend pass away and this person was so incredibly nasty, like the nastiest person that you can imagine. She said something to me. And I was already feeling like really low, like, you know. But then I started thinking, I was like, you know what? That's really wrong. Like, that's horrible, you know. And it was once again like my discernment's like, this person's really nasty, you know, like she's nasty. And I was right. This feeling that I had this entire time, oh, I can't do this. The feeling that I had the entire time about this person kept being shown to me, not only from like her actions, but I had these feelings, like gut feelings, that they were like so incredibly like in my face. But then I didn't want it to be true, you know? Because I think that's the thing too. Like, we don't want things to be true. Like,
yes,
when we date somebody, we want to date that person. You know, I think a lot of people have good intentions when they go into dating, you know, and, you know, and go into marriage, you know. And I'm not saying that for you, but, what we do, we have these wonderful intentions when we go into it most of the time. And, you know, I think every relationship I pretty much went in, I had good intentions going into it. And then once I realized it wasn't going anywhere, I didn't want to waste my time. And, you know, I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So I never let them on. I never did any of that. I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm saying that's my experience, what I did. But I've known people that would completely do something like erratic. Like, you know, they'd go into it and maybe they go into it because maybe say he's rich or something, or his mom and dad are rich, and they thought, oh, I'm going to get some money. So they're gold digger. So they went in with these horrible intentions, or maybe they went in with good intentions, but then realized that they were done. And so instead of breaking up with them, they did something like horrible to them, so they would break up so they could be the victim, you know? And
well, I find it's like,
yeah,
once you start making excuses for things, like making excuses for other people, making excuses for other people's behavior, and there's a huge difference between forgiveness and excusing. You know, forgiving somebody doesn't mean that you just roll over and let them take advantage over and over and over again, right? First, you have to stop making excuses, and that person, if they don't take responsibility, you can, you know, not interact with them anymore, and then forgive them in your heart for what they did. But you have to stop making excuses for the bad behavior and just letting it keep going and going and going. Yeah. So a lot of people, you know, don't have that distinction between, you know, forgiving somebody that you're partnered with, and then they'll just keep doing the same thing over and over again. You know, that's not healthy.
No.
And it's
and when you're not on the same
what
page,
real forgiveness is.
And you're not on the same page. And then if you're not on the same page, eventually, as you're going through this, you have to eventually get on at least the same chapter. So, it's like, because you can't, it's too hard to go through what we're going through if you're both not in it to win it, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I don't think we would make it if we weren't both on the ascension path.
Right.
If we weren't both on that path of enlightenment, like if we weren't both on that we want to become better versions of ourselves, right? For God, for ourselves. If we weren't on that path, it wouldn't work, because our whole purpose of being here is to help other people, but also help ourselves to get into that state of oneness.
So you come here with a mission, and part of this awakening is trying to understand what your mission is, but also you get kind of a little bonus is that you improve your own soul growth. Right?
Well, you get to share it with people too. So
it's like a win-win.
It's very lovely, You get to have, like, I think it's a major gift. Yeah. Like you get to because he and I have been together for a long time.
20 million years.
Not quite. We'll probably kill each other by then. Well, maybe we have. But anyway, we did a really shitty job. We've been together that long. But anyway, no, we've been together we've been out of high school for 26 years now.
Oh my God.
Yeah. This is 26th year this year.
Man, you're old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm 6 months older than you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been together for quite a long time, and but we've been together for 25 years. We've known each other for 25 years. No, we've known each other for 26 years. We've been together for almost 25 years. Like dating and stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know.
Time's relative. It all runs together.
It's close. It's either 24 or 25.
I forgive you for not.
Shut up. You don't know either. So anyway. Gosh. So anyway, we've been together for a long friggin' time. But that being said, we've been with each other. We're on the same page. We want to do this together. So we have to work at it. It's not easy.
I really got on board with this, though, really in the past 2-3 years.
Yeah.
I don't even know how long that was. Yeah. Because, I grew up going to church, and I didn't really like how I went through the confirmation and everything at 14. And then looking back on it, I was like, oh my gosh, they made you declare your whole life before you were even grown up. So it was like, it reminded me of an MK Ultra program that they do for kids when they were younger. And it kind of made me angry. So I kind of had this backlash moment of like breaking away from the church. And I was never really connected with it anyway. I would just like recite the things. And so when, I got together with Danielle, and she was very spiritual and had this connection with God and Jesus and
but mind you, I didn't go to church either.
Yeah, she didn't go to church either.
I mean, I wasn't like a member or anything. And I wasn't at church when I started dating him. I wasn't doing any of that.
So I had this sense that there was some greater being or whatever, but I was just like, I'm going to find out when I die, so why worry about it? And then, but here, past couple of years, when all this stuff really came up, it's almost like there's a moment where you get switched on and activated, and then you have to decide, are you going to choose good or are you going to choose the evil side? Well, obviously, choose the good side because,
right.
Evil
side is not fun.
No.
I mean, when you look at what they're going to get, that's not good at all.
So once I made that decision, like all these, all the spiritual side started opening up, which was very awkward for me because I had been, suppressing it and not looking at it for so long.
It's very, very
so
awkward.
It's very awkward. I went through this really crazy, awkward, like baby spiritual stage, which I'm still kind of in. But, opening up and, as a couple, we had to, if we were going to live the truth, we had to come out with all the truths of all our background.
That really sucked.
With a couple, all the stuff that, we call it the vault. You hide it in the vault.
I had a
for
lot
your
of
whole
shit
life.
in that vault.
And, and I know we've talked about this on other videos, but it was really being able to get to the point as a couple where you could hold space to hear the other person's, untruths and to come clean, and her to hold space for the truths that I had to come out and come clean with, and then transmute that whole energetic thing into a forgiveness, and then move on from there was a lot.
I think the funny thing is that, so I never forgive myself for anything. I'm very rough on myself, like extremely rough.
Me too.
So yeah, and my mind was like, because I lied, like I made up all kinds of shit, and I don't think, and now I don't know, like I'm gonna put you on the spot. I don't think you cared when you lied.
So.
You got over it because whenever, like when I did it, I'm not saying I'm perfect because like I lied a lot. So he barely did it at all. Well, he probably did, but he's actually pretty good at it. So it's like I don't feel like you felt as bad about it. Like you got over it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say he's not that. Like
but
I'm not trying to say it. But that wasn't his.
That wasn't a thing for me.
But for me, I felt like so devastated. Like I just wanted to die. Every single one I did, it was like a knife just stabbing me to death. And like I said, I'm not perfect, not even close. But that was a huge problem for me, like forgiving myself. It wasn't forgiving others, really, because I only have one person I have a hard time forgiving, other than myself, that I've noticed. Like, I think it's this, just anger, like, why? It has to do with me just feeling stupid. That's what that is. But with you, like, I forgave you right away.
Well,
I forgive him totally. It doesn't bother me. I think we
said in our other videos, like, the things that I thought were a big deal.
Right.
When I finally opened up about them, you were just like, "Oh, is that it?"
I just felt like this is so stupid. And I didn't want to be like,
"Again, this is a really big deal." It's like it wasn't a big deal for her.
Yeah.
And the stuff that she was holding on to that you thought were like was like a
huge
big deal, eating you alive. As soon as it came out, I'm like, "All right, is that it?" And then you're like, "What do you mean that's it?" So
I thought for sure divorce.
So yeah,
you thought the same thing.
Yeah, it
was like really bad, so we just kept it.
But we talked about holding the space of forgiveness, and we had to go through that, right? But that was a conscious decision we made as a couple.
It was awful.
It was. But after,
it was so bad.
After those truths came out and we released them and we weren't holding them anymore, oh my gosh, what a relief.
It was a huge relief. There are so many things that were so weird. Like,
there wasn't like, we never slept with anybody else.
No.
There wasn't anything like, but it was enough to where we felt guilty in ourselves, and we weren't forgiving ourselves.
It was like you look at somebody at the mall, and it's like, oh, awful. You're doing something you shouldn't be doing. Oh, awful. It was just so bad. And I think in like the general scheme of things, like, and I'm not trying to be judgmental, but of the people in this world and like things that other people do and find absolutely hideous, we weren't even close, but we were both so like nerdy about it, but we're like both like killing each other for it because we've been together. We didn't want to hurt each other. I think it's because we love each other so much that we just really didn't want to disappoint each other. And it was so
we were holding on to these things to not disappoint the other one.
And we were disappointing ourselves.
We were disappointing ourselves.
Oh, it was so horrible. So it was really funny because just everything was so dramatic.
Yeah. That's what I remember about
so dramatic.
The life before this awakening. Everything was drama. Everything was dramatic.
It was very dramatic.
The news was dramatic. The working day was dramatic. It's still sometimes it's still dramatic.
It was sort of life or death, though. Like
you're like
I'm gonna die if I don't go to the store today. It's like I'm gonna die if I tell him this. It's like, oh fuck, just tell him. I actually had this moment because he pulled into the driveway this one day and I was sitting by the shed and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna fucking tell him. I'm gonna tell him all. And I looked down and I was like, well, here goes. This is the big stuff here. And I just sat there and told him, and he looks at me and he goes, yeah. He's like, I did that too. Or, oh, I did this. And I did that. And I was like, and then it was so funny because inside I was like, ooh, I should be mad at him. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? You just got out of this. What are you doing? And then it was like, I remember thinking, it was so ridiculous. It's like that part of me, like you have the good Danielle, the bad Danielle inside, right? And the good Danielle's going, oh, so nice. He's telling you the truth. And oh, you just love him. The other one's going, what are you doing, bitch? You don't forgive him? You gonna let him talk to you like that? It's like, get the hell out of here. And this whole thing, it's like, I like a complete internal struggle, and I'm like, oh my God, it was so nice. We left the shed and we got up and it was like, I felt like I lost like 100 pounds, and it was so weird because after those times, that was like, there were huge blocks.
And
Huge blocks.
I would imagine, I'm just going to give a warning, if your relationship is not, if you both aren't to that point, and there is one person that's to that point, wants to unload, if your partner is not to the point where they're healed enough to hear it, and then I wouldn't do it. I mean, but also if there's a point like that and you really feel like your growth is being stunted for somebody else,
right,
then go ahead and unload.
If you don't feel like that they're ever going to make it, you might as well just do it. Because you don't want to be stuck in a position where you are finally mature enough to handle like ketchup farting, and this jackass, is constantly losing his mind about it, right? It's like, not him. I mean,
by the way, she laughs at the ketchup.
I do every time.
I'm way more mature than that.
I'm not mature about that. But I'm saying is like, if you have a situation where you have this, like, I don't know, massive downer, like constantly depressed, constantly, you don't have to feel bad about that because you're out of it. And I don't want that to sound wrong, but it takes a lot.
So, I'll bring up my buddy Daniel Lappin again, Rabbi Lappin. He has a thing, the Hebrew word for growth, or the Hebrew word for happiness, is growth. It can be used interchangeably. So your soul cannot feel happy unless it grows, right? So, in another way to put it, another thing that triggers growth is stress. You can't grow a muscle without lifting heavy things. You can't learn new things without going through the process, right? So the stresses in life give you opportunities to grow, which gives you opportunities for happiness, right? And it also states that a person's happiness is their own responsibility.
Yeah.
And he told this story when he was younger. He was moping around the house, and his mom said, "Stop moping around the house, go get happy or something." And he flippantly said, "If you want me to be happy, buy me a motorcycle." And he got cracked across the face. And she said, "Your happiness is no one's responsibility but your own." And just put him right in his place. And it's true. You cannot expect others to make you happy. You have to find that within yourself. And if you're constantly trying to make somebody else happy, you're just pouring your own energy into a black hole. It's just disappearing, because that person has to decide to be happy on their own and find their own growth.
I am so guilty of that, and the worst at it. Well, I'm not anymore, but I was really, really bad at it. So I always took it completely personal. Like every single time somebody wasn't happy around me, I figured it was my fault. Every time. Like, it was ridiculous. For like 40 years. Like, I'm 43. I'll be 44.
That's a bad program to get.
Yeah, it was awful. So it was so weird. It's like, I have these friends that I'd get, and they were basically my projects. So I'd find them, and then I'd fix them. And I really wanted to fix them. I was really good at it. Like, I would be an amazing doctor, right? A shrink. Because I have great advice. I really do. I'm like stellar, so give me advice. I don't want to know about it after I give you the advice, though, because that's the part I have issues with. That's my block. So I give this great advice, and then they never take it. Ever. And they'd always ask me for help, and then they wouldn't take the advice. And the advice was so spot on, and even they would agree with it. But, of course, they were probably just agreeing to get me to shut up. But, now I know that. But anyway, it was really rough because I wanted these projects. Like, I really wanted to help people. Like, I'm a helper. I love helping. I really do. But I can't stand it when they don't actually help themselves. And that's the problem because they weren't helping themselves. I was helping them. And they never wanted to help themselves.
Yeah.
And it's like, I actually just posted about this on our blog. It was about taking the oxygen mask first. You have to work on yourself first before you can work on other people. So maybe all those times I was helping those people, I just wasn't healed myself, and I found all those things wrong with them. Those are things that I couldn't stand. And that was my mirror. Finally, now those people don't come around. And it's great because the people don't come around anymore. They don't need my help. Because I don't need their help. Right? I don't need that mirror. Oh my God, I just...
Ta-da!
Whoa!
And that's how we talk through epiphanies.
I don't have any friends. High five, no friends. So anyhow, yeah, it's a big deal. Like, no friends now. So it's fantastic. Because I don't have any of those people that come around. The only people I have is him, and he won't leave. And then the 2 kids.
Well, the thing about friendship is those obviously were imbalanced relationships, right? It was somebody that you were pouring energy in and none came back.
Well, they were definitely not reciprocated.
Yeah.
Because people have always been attracted to me because I'm sexy. No, because I was a go-getter. And actually, that's why he was attracted to me.
Yeah.
Because I would do the things. Like, I've always been like that. I was excited. I stood up for myself. I was very independent like that. And that was bizarre. When we got together, I stopped being independent. I was insane. But no, I became him. And then the other side of him. And then I became what he wanted me to become too, I think. I became this stay-at-home person that took care of him. And I took care of the kids. And so I still do those things, but I'm also now starting to take care of myself again, which you wouldn't know by sometimes looking at me. But I'm working on that. I'm a work in progress. I'm a self-love and all that jazz. But actually getting ready to go on a massive cleanse and not going to be working out and doing all that. And I'm really excited. So I'm just getting into it because we just got back from spring break.
Yay.
It's amazing. And I ate like a crazy person.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing and I loved it. I loved every part of it. I ate everything. And nothing. I mean, it was weird. We barely ate anything with the stuff I did eat. We pretty much... we really didn't eat that much.
I didn't think we ate that much.
We drank.
Yeah. We had a couple beers.
Yeah. Well, probably 4, 5, maybe 6. I don't know. It's getting worse.
I think we had 4.
I think we had 2 at the campsite, and then 2 the next night at the campsite, and then we had 1 or 2 at the beach. You could drink on the beach; it doesn't matter. Anyway,
it was over a course of a few days.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we were popping them out. So anyway, so it's exciting. But my friendships, they were all attracted by what I could give them, and I loved it because I wanted to do that.
Right. And so you got a hit off of
doing
things for them.
Oh, yeah. I loved helping them. I loved it. I loved every second of it. I loved helping people because I felt needed and wanted.
So the imbalance there was that you were filling a hole of, loving yourself, so you're looking for love on the outside.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I wanted it. I needed it because I didn't really love myself at that time.
So
I didn't love it.
We've been on here almost an hour. Let's get back to how you feel, how you discern when you read something or something hits you, whether it's good or bad, whether what are your feelings on?
So
when you see the truth, what does it feel like?
Well, okay, so it's funny because I can tell right away when people lie to me, and I've been saying this. I'm really good at it. And but it's not like all what you think. It's not just intuition, because I have a really really strong intuition. I get warning signs inside of me, like feelings, and my stuff will like, it's like, if it's almost okay. So if he's getting ready to lie to me, I hear lie. I mean, I can hear it. I mean, I know it right away. It's like the most ridiculous thing. But he's really easy to tell when he's lying. And our son is, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, the kid breathes weird. He does things with his nose, his eyes. He won't look at you. He does all these things, right? That's just his body language.
Well, what is your gut feeling feel like? That's what.
Well, mine's almost like an eye roll, because it's like, huh, like they can get away with it, and they can't.
So if an eye roll had a feeling, that's what it feels like inside.
Yeah, I get these like I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't know how to explain it, because I don't know. You could like think of like several truths that would be tell if I could tell the lie, but it's so weird. It's like okay, so I go to work at this restaurant right down the street, right, and people lie to me all the time there, right, and I know they're lying, and I know they're full of shit, right, and it's funny because I mean I know it right away. And this one guy came in, and I have no problem putting people in the place. I really don't. I don't care. It doesn't bother me at all, because I feel like if they need to be put in their place, I will do it. God wants me to do it. I feel like if it comes on me like that strong, I'll just do it. I don't care. So I was at work, and this guy came in, and he was like super loud, right? Which, already you can tell. And let's just say, theoretically speaking, when somebody's loud, usually like super loud, they're a storyteller. I know. I'm loud. I know. My son's loud. Okay. They want to be heard, right? That's the first thing. They're going to have some kind of, they might not be lying, but they might be exaggerating, which is the same name. Okay. So that's the first thing. So this guy comes in, and he starts talking to me, and he is acting like he's like the cock of the walk. I mean, he is the best thing ever. He's the hottest thing ever, but he wasn't. And the funny thing is, it's like, of course, I know, like, beauty is the eye of the beholder, right? Or the beer holder, I guess. But anyway, so he comes in, and he's telling this story. And this other man comes in, he sits beside him. And he's talking to him, and he's, like, saying it loud enough so I'll hear it. Like, and kind of making eye contact, right? So he starts talking about this woman. And it was like his girlfriend calling. He said, "Oh, she's calling me." And he kind of looks over at me, and, I'm trying not to get into it, because I already know the guy's full of shit, and I didn't want to deal with it, right? So, and then I'm thinking, you know what? He's messing with the wrong woman, because I am totally for women's rights. I am totally for women. I will stick up for a man if I feel like he's being wrong, and I really will. But if somebody F's with a woman, oh, this should make me mad. So I was in there, and he was talking about this woman, and he said, "Oh, she wants to know where I was last night." And so I, in my head, have this issue with men messing around on women, okay? And it's not because I've ever had it happen, because I haven't had wonderful men in my life. I've seen it so many times with friends, and that's part of the stories I was telling you about. But I don't like it when anybody hurts anybody, okay? I don't know. I take it personally, I guess. So anyhow, and I have problems too, okay? So anyway, I'm hearing this story, and I thought, you know what? I need to think objectively, a higher perspective. And I hear this in my head, like, put yourself in a higher perspective, right? And I'm thinking, okay, I'll do it. I am humble, and I shall think of it in a higher perspective. So I listened to this guy, and I said, well, did you tell her? I mean, were you just giving this woman a ride from work? Because he had this woman in his car, and the girlfriend found out that there was another woman in his car, and she got mad. Well, she found out was an eyelash was on the floor of his car. And so I said, well, and I'm thinking, higher perspective, Danielle. And I said, well, were you just giving this woman a ride home? He said, oh, yeah, I was giving her a ride home. I'm like, oh. And I was like, so you're telling me you're like messing around with this woman in your car and you're getting irritated that she's found. He goes, well, yeah. I go, why is that her fault? I go, that's your fault. You were messing around with another woman in your car and she found the evidence and now you're just mad you got caught. And he goes, well, yeah. And I said, are you looking for sympathy from me? And he goes, well, yeah. I said, are you stupid? I go, you deserve everything you get. And the other guy was sitting there. He was kind of like trying not to choke. And he goes, oh, man, all you women are the same. I was like, yeah. You cheated on her. You're an idiot. Why are you getting mad? You're the one who made a mistake. I go, just own up to it. Just own up to it and tell her, hey, yeah, I did this. Because you're stupid. She already knows you did it. She has a freaking eyelash in your car. It's stupid. How the hell did eyelash come out? Now, I'm telling you right now, girls, we know damn well, now I'm not a big eyelash wearer, but I would know if I had one freaking eyelash and one not eyelash. You can look in the mirror and you can tell when you don't have a damn eyelash on. Come on. It's just stupid. And this is the kind of stuff. So the whole thing with discernment. Anyway, what I'm saying is this guy, it's like when you have to listen to these stories, but deep down, like I knew before he was even speaking that he was full of shit. There were signs everywhere. His voice, how loud he got, the way he looked, the ridiculous way he was telling his stupid story. And then he was trying to get me on his side, You don't need to get people on your side if you're telling the truth, Because you have, that's just how it is. You don't need to go into this big whole fucking story about how things happen if you're telling the truth. Because the truth exudes from your persona. It comes out of you and it's obvious. Lies are different because lies, you have to put on a show to lie. You have to build up a story to lie. There's got to be a build up. I know, I lied for a long time. You have to have your lies straight. You have to have your story straight. There's sometimes I can't remember, shit that happens, and you can tell that. And you can tell when somebody's lying because they have to think about it and then stop and go back. And I've done that because I had to make sure my story was straight. So, come on, people. You know when they're lying. This is common sense. But
so, like when you're reading something, how can you tell if you're
reading a story?
If you're flipping through Telegram, there's a lot of nonsense everywhere, right?
Oh yeah.
Depending on where it comes from. So when you hear something,
well, what I do is when I'm reading something, and if it's a person stating a personal opinion, I can look at it and it's how they word things. If a lot of people that tell the truth, they just come out and tell the truth. They don't have to put a whole fucking dictionary's definition up to state their facts. They don't have to say science supports it. I can look that information up myself. I don't need you to give me all the information. I need you to just tell me yes or no. Do you like me? Circle yes or no. That it's the simplest thing. The simplest answer is the truth. It's not the big convoluted fucking, stuff above it. That's how it is. It's like, I do find that. It's like the stuff with most of the time, the people that are the most full of crap are the people that have to cite everything. Think about it, college professors. You have to cite all your freaking sources. Why? Because you're automatically a liar? Because you're lying about it? Why? Oh, I have to prove it? Why do you have to prove it? Why do you have to? No, I'm just thinking about this. Why do you have to prove it? It's bullshit. You shouldn't have to prove it. They should prove it. If they have a problem with it, they should go look it up and prove it. Now, it's true. Why?
So what I do, like with me, I'll go through, a dozen things, dozen different points, and like I'll just kind of like tuck it in the back of my head, back of my mind, and then I'll read like one thing, and then it ties all these things
Yeah.
together. And then so this is what I've been going through during this awakening is I'll get on a subject and I'll research it. And right now I'm on Tataria and where that came from and all that. And I'll listen to this documentary, read this piece of news, da 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 da, and then um, this one woman on a podcast said something that just tied the whole thing together, and it all just went boom, all at once. And that's when the big shock, like angel tingle, like good, truth bomb hits, and you're like, oh my gosh, that one piece just fit all these puzzle pieces together, and that whole section of the puzzle just gets put in,
Right.
The bigger thing.
And I get that too. Like I'll have a feeling. I'll get this feeling like I just know it's right. If I don't get the feeling that I know it's right, I move on. I look down. Like I can give you a couple examples just looking at my telegram.
So all I can say is that when the majority of the world media is having you go one direction, and there's just this river of information, and everywhere you look on the big sites are all saying the same thing. That's when it makes me nervous. And when you get that nervous feeling like, okay, they're pushing something, then pop your head out of the river and look the other way. And like I said, see what's behind it. And usually you can see that they've taken bits of the truth to make it seem legitimate, and then just twisted it into this really whatever program narrative they want you to know or want you to think. And they're programming you to think just like the whole river. And so everybody needs to hold on to their sovereignty, dig their heels in the sand, and pop up out of that river and look around at what's going on, And usually, once even just doing that and separating yourself from that programming, you can usually start feeling intuitively, what's right and wrong, even just getting out of that.
So I can give you a big example too.
That vibration just it clouds you so badly, and even just separating from it can help you.
Yeah.
So,
well, a big example for Earl and I is when all this stuff came up about Russia. Okay, and this is a big problem with everybody. Everybody says Putin's bad. Ukraine's amazing.
It's black and white. Putin bad, Ukraine good.
Right. There's no in between. Nobody thinks about anything else. Everybody says, okay, the news says Putin's bad. TV says Putin's bad. Cartoon says Putin's bad. What we were talking about when we were kids, we used to watch Rocky Bullwinkle, right? And Natasha was the Russian sexy lady, right? But they were bad, right? They always had guns and they were bad, right? And the morons were good all the time, right? It's usually not how it is. But anyway, so all our life we're tuned in to think that Russia's bad all the time. I'm not saying Russia hasn't had its moments. I'm saying that all of our lives we have been taught to think that Russia is bad. Now, I want to take you back a few months ago, before all this crap with Ukraine. Zelensky, okay? Horrible person. Horrible. Oh, he's wonderful. Now, these people are saying he's wonderful don't even know who the hell this guy is. They've never heard of this guy before. Never heard one thing from this man at all. Not one. First of all, he's an actor. Well, you can say, okay, Trump's an actor, whatever. Okay, sure. Ronald Reagan was an actor also, okay? This guy basically played the piano with his member naked on television, and he won awards for it. I mean, okay, sure. That's a talent, I guess. So anyway, but he was on TV doing all this stuff. Now, not even going there, okay? Go back. There were problems within that government. People were complaining. The people in Ukraine wanted him out. And there was all these reports on how bad Ukraine was. Ukraine's horrible. Ukraine's horrible. This is horrible. These people are... The people in Ukraine
are suffering.
Yeah, they're suffering. Let's help them. Okay? Now, mind you, Then Putin goes to the border. Putin had been saying for months, he's coming, okay? He's coming, get out, move, okay? Now, these people, oh, I'm not leaving my home. Whatever, dude. I tell you right now, let's just say Putin was a horrible man and he said, or let's say Kim Jong-un says tomorrow, hey, we're bombing Ohio. I'm getting the hell out of here. Fuck this place. You know, I'm done. You know, if I believed that, if I really believed that, I'd be getting the hell out, right? I'm not going to wait. Nothing's tying me down. It's a bunch of crap, right? So here's the thing. They were talking about this Zelensky guy forever. He was a horrible man. Say he did all these bad things. He was letting people, they were actually bombing their own country. Okay. All this stuff was going on. Now all of a sudden, our news doesn't cover anything. Then puts on their video footage from an actual freaking video game showing that like Russia's bombing these places. It's a video game. Then they showed an old movie of Russia bombing some places. It's an old movie. None of this stuff's happening. They lied. Ukraine, if you go on Telegram, which I have like a million times, because I have discernment and I look, because it wasn't adding up for me. It just isn't adding up for me. After I saw all this stuff going on with Ukraine, then all of a sudden, now the news is saying, now if the news says anything's good, then it's bad. Okay? Because the news lies about every damn thing it does. So I started...
That's what I'm talking about. The whole narrative stream was Putin bad, Putin bad, Putin bad. And if you can stick your head up and just kind of see, okay, why are they saying that?
Right, and I started looking
Where's the money coming from? You know, what are they covering up?
Well, then I remembered obviously Biden, okay? So Biden's son has stake in Ukraine, okay? Pelosi's son has stake in Ukraine. John Kerry's son, stake in Ukraine. And who's the other one? I always leave that one out.
McCain's? No.
But there was something with McCain.
Yeah.
But obviously McCain's dead. But
I forget who else is. There's another son.
Pelosi, Kerry, Biden, and another one. There's 4. At any rate, there's 4, right? And so they all of their kids have stake in Ukraine, right? And guess what? They have all these biolabs. Do you know what the biolabs have in them? Viruses. Do you know what Trump said? You know why Trump said China? Yeah, he said, he was at a thing a few weeks ago, and he said, did you know that there's a China in Ukraine? And everybody's like, oh, shit.
That's why he said that. Yeah.
So, in the way he was saying, you know how he says it, that weird way he says it? He doesn't say China, but he says the whole thing. So, that's how it is said. It's a CHYNA, which is kind of funny.
We might get in trouble for talking about this because a lot of people have been taken down for this, but we're a very small channel right now.
Nobody's going to take us down right now. So anyway, all this stuff happens, right?
That's why I'm being quiet, because there's all kinds of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, there's so much. But anyway, so I start seeing all this stuff and start adding it all up. It doesn't make sense. So anyway, it's not just because some people think this, some people think that. I start looking at it. So what guy's going to go in and warn the people, hey, I'm going to come in. I'm going to come in next week. I'm going to wait till after the Olympics, and I'm going to come in. And you're still there? Really? Boy, sounds like a horrible guy. And then here's the other thing. Then, not only does he come in, and he goes straight to these biolabs, destroys these biolabs, gets all the paperwork. The people in Ukraine start destroying paperwork out of biolabs. Why are they doing that? That doesn't make any sense. Oh, I just thought about the 2020 election when Biden said he had no stake in Ukraine. He has no idea what they were talking about. Then you think about the laptop from hell and all that information about Ukraine, all that stuff. Now you think, man, I wonder if the news is telling the truth. No, they're not. They lie.
They lie, and when they get caught, they do little retractions.
Right.
That nobody knows about.
Right. Not only do they do these stupid little retractions, like now all of a sudden you had 55 members of Congress, okay? 55 members say, oh, this is absolutely not true. There was no such thing as this laptop. It is not right. It's not real. Now all of a sudden, oh, it's real. So you have 55 members of Congress, basically, that just committed treason. No big deal. Let's not worry about it because you know what? Trump's not the president, right? Biden is, right? So, no big deal. There's so many things that keep happening. And so, like, you have to use your head. You have to get on a different perspective. There are people that don't like him. So what? Who cares about your feelings? This isn't about your feelings. This is about what's best for everybody. Your feelings don't matter, okay? You need to keep your emotions to yourself. Your emotions are your problem. It's not Trump's problem. The way you react to Trump or the way you react to Biden, that's not their problem. That's your problem. That's an issue within you. That's something that you need to figure out. And so all of these feelings and everything, oh, I didn't vote for him because he has a mean tweet. Oh, you know what? Get over it. He told the truth. You just didn't like it. And that's the thing.
Got triggered by the truth.
Yeah, and a lot of people were. And we're going through this awakening. And people are waking up.
That's a good point about truth, is that when your ego hears the truth that is somehow going to hurt, your ego automatically flares up and you get triggered. That's called being triggered. Right? So the big part of this process is realizing what your egoic reactions are and what are what's the opposite of egoic reaction?
I have no idea.
Anyway, when your ego's in the way, you can get triggered very easily. But when you look objectively and pull yourself out of that, because your ego is full of emotional reactions, when you can pull yourself out of that and look objectively, that's when you can really use your discernment. But that first step is pulling your head out of your ego.
Yeah, you really can't have discernment with the ego. I mean, it's stupid. And the thing about it is once you know that, like, once you admit that you have an ego, which is the first issue, because a lot of people won't even admit it. It's like the most ridiculous thing. Everybody has an ego. Every single person on this planet has a freaking ego. Okay.
You can't survive without the ego. The ego is there for a reason.
It's your discernment.
It helps you drive this body around.
Right.
It protects you in times of trauma because it clouds everything. It can actually sever your connection with your heart. Your head and your heart can be completely severed with the ego. And part of knowing what the truth is feeling that within your body. And you can't do that when your ego is clouding everything in your head. So
when you can't admit that there's other things in control other than you got an ego problem. Okay, so like there's so many things. We can definitely talk about ego one of these days here.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that.
Maybe time. Next time. But yeah, it's a lot. The ego is a lot, and if you can't set that aside, the whole point of the ego and setting it aside to be able to see the truth, you have to be an observer. Okay, you have to see both sides. If you can't do that, then you can't have proper discernment. You just can't. So
take a look at both sides, and then so when we talk about feeling the truth, we're not talking about an emotional response. It's an actual physical feeling in your body, like a gut feeling. And the feeling, if you can remove yourself and become the observer and observe the points on every side as much as you can, and then really try to sense within your body a feeling of right and wrong. And usually that it can come in as conscience, creator talking to you directly. And you have this just like feeling of knowing right. It can come in just like, there's some guys I watched that for Amazon merch, this guy just talked about his gut all the time. He's just, I got this gut feeling. I just listen to my gut. That is a measure of spiritual discernment. Absolutely. And usually almost 100% of the time, your gut reaction, your gut feeling, if it's not coming from a head of emotion, is the right answer. And your ego will try to talk yourself out of it. You know?
Well, and the other thing too, go back to what you were just saying like 2 seconds ago.
Gut feeling it's a physical feeling inside yourself.
So what also is important to be in the observer mode is this, that when you have that feeling that something's right or wrong, it can also be whenever you think something is wrong and it's right. Okay. And you have to be able to set aside the ego to say, okay, yeah. Because what happens is there's been times when, like, I swear something's going to happen. I know this is true. I know this is right. And then all of a sudden, I'll sit quietly for a second, and then God will be like, no. And I'm like, oh, shit.
So
and then
we have to eat a little crow sometimes.
And then I have to be a big girl and admit that I was wrong and understand, forgive myself, I guess, and then understand why and say something. Because nobody's perfect. So, and I've done it. You can ask them. I've done it several times. I've done it in front of people. I've done all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, it's big.
We all have to eat a little crow sometimes.
Yeah.
But then in those moments where, you were wrong, it's usually you can trace it back and figure out that your ego was doing something to either protect you or not want to admit something. Admitting that you're wrong is a big crush to your ego because your ego really wants to be right. And,
it's really not so bad once you get going, though.
Sometimes your ego will make you fight a point, well past the time where the truth is revealed already. And that's when it gets worse and worse and worse. Yeah. And so it's good. The quicker you can figure out that your ego is pushing something, that's, again, pulling yourself out of that.
It's the table.
Yeah, so when I was attached to the stupid table and I was fighting because the table was perfect, my ego was holding on to this. The table's perfect. Well, it was perfect. And then once I realized that the ego was fighting so hard to hold it, I was like, why is the ego fighting so hard to hold this? It's because I was living in the past. So that was the train of thought I went on. Once I was able to understand my ego was in control at that moment, and then break out into observer mode, then I could see all the points, and then my discernment popped in and said, oh, I'm holding on to the past because it was perfect, but it's not perfect for what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And then it was easy. Then it was like, get that out of
here.
And
it's so funny because, like, he came in today, he's like, man, this house is perfect. It's so awesome. Man, we did such a good job. It's so great. And it's like, yeah, it's great. And I could barely think about how it used to be. And how I used to feel when I came in here. And now it feels so good and it's like charged.
But yeah, that's a really great example of how, when people think ego, it's like, they think of the
like
bad jock fighting around on the playground or something.
Yeah.
But it can rear its head and have control over you over the very simplest things like moving a table out.
Right. Yeah, so. It's crazy how it can take over. Sorry, that was really loud. I'm getting some peppermints. Would you like them?
No, thanks. So, what else can we say about truth and lies? Discernment. So, I started writing a book about our trip out west because I had so many examples. God was just giving me example after example after example of listening to my inner creator voice and following it. And just simple stuff like I just had this feeling that just kind of popped in like I should probably change that windshield wiper. And then I started talking myself out of it. Like, no, last time I did that, it broke something. I'll just wait till we get home, And so my ego starts talking myself out of, I should probably change that windshield wiper. Well, 3 hours later, we're in the worst rainstorm of my entire life, and the windshield wiper sucks, and we can't see the road. And so it was like, oh, you're not going to listen to your intuition again, huh? Boom, gets me again. And so it was just time after time after time. And those little things, like at work, I find I use my intuition and discernment all the time. But, I couple that with my spatial mental reasoning and everything else. But usually when I look at a blueprint, I intuitively get an idea of how the job is going to run. And then, I detail it out from there. But in other things, like changing that windshield wiper, sometimes I talk myself out of it. So it's really interesting how these little hits come in.
We all have moments where we do that, though. And it's just about listening to yourself and really just trusting yourself. And one of the things that I talked to Earl about, because he wanted to have some of my spiritual gifts that I have, and my intuition is really, really high. I would say very strong. And he'd ask me about that. And I tell him that, well, my intuition is very strong, but I've worked at it for a long time. And I think his intuition is very strong. He has very strong intuition, but it's not as strong as mine. And
I don't follow it as much.
Yeah.
I'll listen to it and then talk myself out of it.
Because I like to think of Earl as a brainiac. And whereas that's a very good thing, he's very smart, but we're not of this world, we're in it. And if he would learn that basic thing, then he would be so much more powerful he would have so much more powerful connection to God and to the universe. And I really think that once he starts to actually apply it more, he'll get more and more. It's some people would tell me a perfect example is understanding the Bible. Okay, understanding the Bible is very difficult. I'm not talking about understanding little passages like reading little tiny things maybe in the parables, or even though sometimes I guess the parables are kind of hard to understand, even though they're supposed to be easy to understand. That's why it's called parable. But little sections of the Bible are very difficult, especially Revelation. It's very difficult to understand. And even the New Testament, it's very hard to understand. When Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, whenever they're talking about the same subject, right? But they all tell it in a different way. And I remember when I first started reading the Bible to actually understand it and using my spiritual intuition to understand what was happening. And it was a completely different Bible. It's like when I read the Bible before, I kind of understood a little bit, but the more I read it, the more I saw, the more I understood. Then I started, this is kind of funny, when I first started reading it, I got in my head this one day, you need to watch it. I was like, I need to watch it. I was like, okay. I was like, well, the only thing I had was the Passion of the Christ, right? So I was like, okay. So I got the Passion of the Christ out, and I turned it on, and I watched it. That movie, Earl and I went to go see it at the movie theater. I bawled my eyes out. It's horrible. I was like devastated. I was like, oh my God.
This is
the worst thing I've ever watched in my life.
Tough movie.
I felt so horrible. I felt so shitty. And anyway, I watched it the first time with him, and then got the movie and watched it again. And, same reaction, cried. I was just devastated. I was like, oh God, it's so horrible what we did to this man. And then in my head, I got, now watch it again as his friend. And I was like, oh God. So I did. I watched it as his friend, as a perspective of observer of it being his friend. It's like, okay. So the first time I was just like an observer. I wasn't even me. I was an observer. I didn't really understand what that meant until after I watched it several times. So I watched it again. I think it was even the same day. So I kept it in mind that I was a friend of his and I saw him do this. And I was even more devastated. I mean, it was so awful. I just thought, oh my God. I can't imagine oh geez, Jesus, this is so horrible. And that's I went with him on this journey and I learned so much stuff. And, this is the Son of Man, and I'm like, man, it's horrible. And I'm watching it and it's just so devastating. I turn it off and he has me go read Luke, okay? Or Matthew. So I read Matthew. I was like, wow. And then I thought of the movie. And I was like, when I was reading Matthew, I was Matthew. I was immersed. When I was reading the red letters, I was Jesus. And I was feeling what Jesus felt. In my way, as much as I could. I get done reading it. The next day, read Mark. I said, okay. I read Mark. He says, watch the movie again. It's like, okay. I get this feeling. I get it. I can hear it. I can feel it. I know I'm supposed to watch this movie again, right? And so I turn it on, and he says, watch it as a soldier. I was like, oh, God. So it's like, oh, gosh, I'm doing this to him. I got to do this stuff to him. So I watch it, and I'm like, oh, gosh, like all these ways to perspectives. And I had no idea what was happening at the time. And even now, just thinking about it, telling this story, I never really thought about it until now. All the different, perspectives. I talked to him about it, and I could see it in different perspectives. But it's just the impact it's had on me. I watch it. Then I read the next chapter. Luke. Okay? Tells me to watch it again. This time, watch it as Mary. Oh my God. That was rough.
Watch it as his mother.
As his mother. And I'm a mother. And all I can think of is my children being beaten and being able to like just sit there and watch it and not like lose it over this stuff, or even like, I don't know, stone the people or something. And knowing that your child is doing this for you and for everyone, and not be able to do anything and just have to accept it. I knew that from the beginning. Like, from the beginning. I mean, they knew this. Like, she was told this. Like, he would be the special person. And, So, I watched his mother. Oh, so devastating. And it was like, every time... Sorry, I got stuck my tooth. It was like, I couldn't open my mouth. Every time I watched it, he had me watch it as another person. I mean, I watched it several times. You have no idea. I mean, just so many. Oh, he's like, watch it as you again. And it was so overwhelming. And it was beautiful. And it was horrible and beautiful. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever watched in my life. And it like changed my life. And then he asked me to read, John. And then it's like I got it. I understood what it was. And all of these perspectives that these men that were his friends, they all had a different perspective, but all had the same story. And they were all at different paths in their journey. And all of these paths of their journey that they were writing from went up in ascension levels. You saw a little here, you saw a little bit more here, you saw a little bit more here, and then you saw the most over here.
The most expanded consciousness.
Expanded consciousness. And I understood it because my consciousness, as I was reading and as I was watching, my consciousness expanded to that of to where he was at the end, and how I understood and how I observed it. I was not able to understand that before because my consciousness was not expanded enough. So when people tell me that they read the Bible, when they read the Bible and they don't understand, I just want to say, hey, read it again and keep reading it, and you'll eventually understand, because your consciousness has not expanded that enough to which you're going to get anything out of it. Because when you go to God, he says, pray without ceasing. That means you never stop praying. That means you never stop going to him for everything. You go to him for everything. You go to him for a paper cut. You go to him for when you're in your period. You go to him for whenever you have marriage problems. When you want a candy bar, and when you want to go on a diet, and whenever you're cheating on your diet, when you're cheating on your spouse, you're supposed to go to him. You're supposed to keep going to him. And all those times you go to him, that's praying without ceasing. That's going to him and asking for help, because you can't do this by yourself. You can't understand what's in that book by yourself. That's your ego.
So that's discernment. That comes from the higher perspective, from our Creator, giving you a glimpse of what the truth
Right.
is.
And he gave me these lessons like from the beginning, and it was like when I was first starting getting, he gave me these lessons, and I listened, and I was the student, and he's the teacher. Everybody is a student, and everybody's a teacher at one point in their life. Every single one of us is a student. Every single one of us is a teacher. Even whenever you're a teacher, you're a student of your teacher. Okay? You're a teacher of a teacher of your student, a student of your student. Your student is your teacher. That's what I was trying to say. That was really deep. But what I'm trying to say is this is like you learn constantly. We're learning. And we're discerning the entire time what's right from wrong. God could have just told me the answer. Right? But what's the fun in that? God could have just said us, here, Earl, here's your gift. Woohoo! And that's what he wants, but he's not going to get it because the point of it is you learn right from wrong. You don't learn not to touch an electrical socket with a fork until you do it. And then you know damn well you should never have done that. You don't learn not to, you tell kids not to cross the street without, paying attention. But one of these days, you're going to get your hand smacked or your ass smacked because you didn't listen. Then you'll learn not to do it again. There's always a teacher. There's always a student. There's always another mode of observing. And somebody right now will maybe one day watch our video and say, oh, I see it from this point. This is what you could have learned at that point. There was somebody ahead of me, clearly. And there's also people going, oh, wow, maybe I should start reading it. Maybe I'll understand it. And just because I understand it that way doesn't mean you will. But the lesson that I got was I wasn't getting it. Why should I read this and I don't understand it? I remember reading it and he's like, go back. Okay. I went back again. Read it again. Okay. God knows how I learn. I am a visual person. I can also learn like by listening, but sometimes I have to do both. And so he gave me the movie, plus he gave me the book, right? And so he had me go back and just keep going back and forth. And then finally, something clicked. And then when I go back and I look at it, I understand. I have that picture in my head. Sometimes we need a picture in our head. Sometimes when kids are learning how to read, they don't like to read because they can't get that picture in their head. They don't have that creativity. They don't have that part of them. So like if you tell them to read Harry Potter, they don't want to read Harry Potter. It's stupid. It's a book. They don't want to read it. But if you watch Harry Potter and see what the characters look like, then you go to read it. It makes sense. And you can enjoy it even more, And that's just, and then sometimes in a reverse, I think it's a lot of times better because the book's usually way better than the movie. But you watch the movie so you can see what they look like. And then you read the book and it's like, wow, and you can have all those senses being filled. Your mind's going, you got the picture in your mind. You could feel it, you could smell it, you could see it. You're fully engrossed in it, right? And it's like surrounding you. And that's how it was for me. When I was reading those chapters of the Bible, I started to get it. Now, he would read, and he would say, well, what's this mean? And he would say, I don't understand it.
So it's really interesting. I wanted to jump in here because, you get directions like read Matthew, right? Yeah. Watch a movie. And they come in and you hear it, hear, see, hear, feel, or whatever it is. Yeah. You have this feeling that you need to do that, right? So you get read Matthew. I don't get words and directions like that. What I realize is happening with me is that I'll be just interested in something. Mm-hmm. So I love listening to podcasts and stuff when I'm at work, and I started listening to. I was really into the making money, improving yourself kind of stuff. All my since teenage years, I would listen to self improvement, how to win friends and influence people, magic of thinking big, all that kind of stuff. But I started getting into Amazon, which led me to this Christian guy had a group that on how to sell on Amazon, and he had Rabbi Lapin on there. And so Rabbi Lapin had a business program on business secrets of the Bible, and I just thought, oh, what the heck, I'll listen
Which
to
is
it.
odd because he was completely against the Bible and against everything. So it makes absolutely no
Right.
sense
Well,
to why he would do it in the first
the
place.
podcast between this Amazon guy and Rabbi Lapin, he was making a lot of sense. So that made sense to me. And then I got interested. In what else he had to say. So then I left over and started. I bought this book, Business Secrets of the Bible, and it ran through the Hebrew lessons on how to make money, where money comes from, what money is actually value that you create. If you create imbalance, it's balanced out by the paper that denotes value and all this great stuff. It was a really good book. I loved it. So then I started just listening to Rabbi Lapin's podcast, and he breaks down Hebrew into these lessons that are just so awesome and really makes you think and just draws you into this whole thing and opened up the Old Testament of the Bible in ways that I had never seen before, right? But here's me who didn't like to go to church, didn't really want anything to do with it. It pretty much got in the way of my only day off that I have in my busy season. So I didn't like that. I like sleeping in, like my pancakes. There's things that I like that I'd have to give up to go to do the whole thing, right? So here's a guy that doesn't really want anything to do with it, listening to Rabbi Lapin, for a couple years, and I bought several of his courses, but I was interested in it. And so it's like God was leading me around by this carrot, by this interest, right? And I need to, like, when I get like that, I need to know all of it. So I'll start digging into all this stuff. And I usually end up buying everybody's courses and everything they have, right? And I dig all the way through it. And it was great. Learned all kinds of stuff. Well, then in the podcast and the videos I was listening to, someone mentioned your Rancha book. And there was this guy that did a whole series on the Urantia book, which is a channeled book of our creation, and there was this whole group of people that only studied the Urantia book, and there were like all these Urantia scholars and everything else. And I'm like, you know what? That sounds pretty interesting. That sounds kind of interesting. So I started digging into that. Well, what I found in being interested in things is that God's leading me to these things, and usually I might only get one point out of the entire video or the entire book series. I might only get one thing, but that one thing is so profound that it leads me to the next thing. So Rabbi Lapin opened up the Bible and the Hebrew and the lost translations and started cluing me into how the English language really suppressed our imagination, suppressed our knowledge, just the language itself. And so it made me think of, okay, well, why did they try to take the meaning away from things? They even reversed it. It used to go left to right. Now it goes right to left. And, why'd they do that? So it made me question a lot of things just in that. And then I was led to your Rancher book, and I got through several chapters of that. There's a free site on YouTube that someone reads it. So I just did that at work. Well, I got through the whole story of creation of the Rancher book, and it was super interesting. But there was this one section talking about the infiniteness of God, and it broke down how God, breaks himself down to be more understood by his creations, right? And just as soon as you think you understand, you can't nearly comprehend how infinite he is. And I got a huge download, angel tingles, truth bomb dropped on me when it finally hit me. I didn't like the religious side of it because the religion boxed God in and put a parameter around him. Okay, put a barrier around him. And God cannot be contained in any definition. The infiniteness of him and the creation and the power of the creator cannot be contained in anything. And so all these religions, this all flooded in one time at work while I was painting, all flooded in that Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, all of it, if there is a system that man created to explain the creator, it falls far short of what he is. And so even when you think you know, you can't possibly comprehend it. So that was the one thing I got out of the Urantia book. And after that moment, I didn't want to read it anymore. I think I was a third or maybe halfway through, and then I was done. But that was the one thing that God wanted me to know from that.
Yeah, and I think that's, I think that's important too, because when you said that, I sort of had my little eye-open moment there. It was the fact that, God came to me through the Bible. He came to me because I was interested in that and needed to know, like, what do I need out of this? What's the point? What is this? Who are you? That kind of thing. And he showed me who he was by all those different perspectives. He's from all of those people. You could see, think about it, like, he's the friend, he's the son, he's the father, he's the guy that they did these things to. He's all of these things. Plus, as you know, when you got the most out of it is from that book and from the podcast. He couldn't be boxed in, but he came to you in a way that he could come to you.
Absolutely.
And so he came to me.
Individual seeking.
Right.
And I didn't even know I was seeking. I knew I was missing something. And so he kind of led me into seeking.
Yeah.
But once I started seeking, the answers started dropping.
And that's what I'm saying. So this is what I try to tell him all the time. So when he gets upset, and when I've known other people that do too, so I'm not just picking on you.
No, but I mean, this is a good example.
It is everybody that wants to know or wants to, like, okay, say you want to know about tarot cards. Well, you're not going to know about tarot cards unless you look up tarot cards and get some tarot cards and look up the information, read a book, or go to a teacher. You're not going to know, right? So it's the same thing with God. You're not going to know about God unless you start seeking God. And the more you seek God, the more you find out. The more. There's somebody banging here.
She's hammering
so
out there.
There's more and more and more that you get. And I told him the main thing that I got from reading the Bible is this is what God told me. God told me that I'm seeking, I'm getting, it's like you seek and you shall find, right? And I'm finding, and he'll tell me things, and the more I seek, the more I find. And there might be days where I don't feel like anything's going on. And it's a lot of times when I just need a break, and he's just like letting me have that break, and then it'll seep in where it's like it might have taken a couple days for me to understand something. And then all of a sudden, maybe I might look over at a chair, and it might be the color of the chair, and it'll remind me of something that happened 6 years ago. And that answer is the answer that I was seeking from that particular moment. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, and it's so weird.
Sometimes it's just the act of relaxing, and then the energy can come in.
Yeah, and
because you're almost blocking yourself by.
Well, yeah,
I do that all the time.
That's what meditation is. Meditation is just sitting with yourself quietly. That's it. You don't have to. I have this like huge problem with meditation. Okay, so like, I will go sit down like all the little books do, and they show you all these, and I get absolutely nothing. I think about pizza. I think about work. I think about going to the store, Dollar Tree, doing some crafts. I think about everything but meditation. I think about that not at all, not even a little bit. When I lay down and I close my eyes, I can try to meditate then, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I find the best time, and it's always been this way with me, ever since I was a kid. When I got in the car or when I was by myself, I would just talk to God just like I'm talking to you guys. And I would hear an answer. And I would do it all the time. So every time I got in the car when I was 16, I would talk to God as if we were best friends. And I would just tell him about stuff. And then I would hear an answer. And I did all the time. And I can think back about all these different moments when I'd be in the car and just like understanding stuff. And I didn't really know what I was getting or who I was getting it from, but I would get an answer. And then I was just like, I thought everybody got that. Thought everybody did that. And then I mentioned it out loud a couple times when I got older. And people were like, you're a freak, you know? Like, I was like, oh, all right. And then stuff started happening. Like, I still talked about it and talked to God in the car. And I would do stuff like that. And then whenever everybody was gone, I would talk to God when I was doing dishes. I would talk to God. Well, my kids were around the house. I didn't care. I just talked to God. I was talking out loud. And I never thought anything of it. Then after my brother died, I was in the living room. And it was like the dumbest thing ever. I was so aggravated because when I was talking to God, I didn't really feel like I was getting an answer. And I remember just kind of like irritated about it. I'm like, you're not even here. And he's like, I've been here this entire time. And I was like, oh shit. I've been talking to him this entire time. And he's the one that was answering me. And it's just like, I felt so stupid. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so dumb. And then it was just funny. You know, it was just like our own little joke. Like, I'm just slow. And so all this stuff, every time I'd read a book or need help and I'd get this answer, like Earl talks about these downloads. Well, I get those too. And, but my, I guess clairaudience, you know, hearing and I would hear it so clearly because I constantly seeked. And I believe that the more you seek, the more you find. The more I seek in the Bible, the more I find. The more I seek with any of this metaphysical stuff that I've been doing, the more I find. The more I find that I like it, the more I find that I'm supposed to be doing it. I started feeling heat in my hands. I was feeling hot. I woke up in the middle of the night and said I was a master healer. It was the most bizarre thing ever. And as soon as I said it, as soon as it came out of my mouth, I knew it was right. That I was right. That I am. And then I started looking into that, you know? And that's how I've been going. I'm sorry, I have like allergies or something. But I've been going, that's how I've been doing. I've been using my intuition. Every single thing that I have seeked, if I find any amount of interest in it, I get into it just like he does. And then whenever I get out of it, there's a stopping point, just like he said. There's always a stopping point. I have several books over there that I've read. The Mystical Life of Jesus, I read that book. And I feel like some of it was true, and the other parts of it I feel like was complete bullshit. But the parts, I think the whole purpose for me at the time was, and now I'm saying that, I feel it, was for me to just open myself to a possibility of something else happening, because I was so stuck in the Bible that it was like the be all end all of everything, and that every single thing was completely true. Yes,
Put
Mr.
it in
Box.
a box.
And as soon as I started to look at the other documents, then I started to see like, okay, this is not quite right, and I started to feel it. Just like I was talking to you guys last week about Adam and Eve and how he was getting upset about the Adam and Eve thing. And I have the book of Enoch here, and I was reading it, and actually just ordered 2 books. The Gospel of Q, which is not Q like you're thinking, but it's actually a gospel book that was written a long time ago. It was about the teachings of Jesus. And
there are like 771 books of the Bible that are not in the Bible.
I don't know the exact amount, but there's a lot. 700 books at least. And people just talk about the Apocrypha, which I have 2 copies over there, and it's not, I mean, I'm sure there's a purpose to the Apocrypha, but they're not like what people are like, the books that they took out, like the Adam and Eve parts, the Book of Enoch, which I don't know what they did there, why they did that.
Well, most of the stuff they took out is anywhere where they say, seek out a personal connection with God with no middleman, right?
Yeah.
That's taken out.
Well, because the Catholics made religion, basically. So
they took out
yeah,
the
we
stuff
want
with
people to go to them.
with the divine feminine. You know, they turned Mary Magdalene into the whore and everything
Yeah.
else. So basically, it was the male-dominated books.
Which cracks me up because they have this elevated statue with Mary, and they have all this. I mean, it's really bizarre with the Catholics. I don't quite understand that. But you know, and the whole saints thing, and they elevate everybody but Jesus. And you got to go to be able to talk to him. You got to talk to the priest. Well, no, you don't, because that's like first of all, it's the dumbest shit ever. I don't know why people even bought into it, but
Yeah, most of the books are about, you know, not needing the church,
well,
basically.
God, I mean, Jesus tells you that. Like, I don't understand why anybody just didn't bring it up to the priest.
Stripped out the divine feminine.
You know?
I mean, that's most of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, there's a lot. So, anyway, we are 2 hours.
2 hours in already.
We are
so
good at talking.
We gotta wrap it up.
So,
here.
Anyway, use your discernment.
Discernment comes from God. He's the truth teller. You have to open yourself to it. God, creator, with that force, that light force. God is light. Light is the one that shines in the darkness to reveal the lies. Anything that's manipulative, that feels gross, it's a feeling inside your body. That's the lies. That's the wickedness.
That's not of light. And you could be a really good person and have dark. Every one of us do. We all do. And you just have to recognize
Well, that's part of being human.
We're shining light. We're shining
down in
light
the swamp, and you know, we get leeches attached to us, and we gotta pick them off every once in a while.
And you have to get rid of them, and then you fill yourself up with light from Christ, and it's good. So we're gonna leave it there, and then next week we'll do the Lord's Prayer. We'll start off with that, and talk about ego.
Ooh, fun.
Okay, is that good?
Bye, guys.
All right, see ya. Bye.